So I was expecting to continue my series of readings of little quotations from songwriters about songwriting, but you know, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans for the future, as my Quaker friends say. And I got absolutely ambushed. I started reading John Eliot Gardiner's biography of Johann Sebastian Bach, Music in the Castle of Heaven, and this just caught me completely, so I wanted to share it. He looks at Bach mainly through the choral music. He looks at how you can interpret and understand Bach through the way that he uses music and words together. And that's really a main theme of the book. As a listener, critic, or scholar, you normally have a margin of time in which to measure and reflect on your response to Bach's music. Analysis of musical structure has its uses, but it gets you only part of the way. It identifies the mechanical bits and describes the component engineering, but it doesn't tell you what it is that makes the motor purr and hum. As with many composers, but particularly in Bach's case, it turns out to be much easier to trace the craftsman-like procedures he used to elaborate and transform musical material than to define or penetrate to the core of his initial inventive formulations. Whereas over the past century, musical analysis has brought us far in comprehending Bach's craftsmanship, the techniques we habitually use to analyze music when it's joined to verbal expression are of little use. We need a different toolkit. Performance, on the other hand, removes the last possibility of sitting on the fence. You are obliged to commit to a view and an interpretation of a work in order to present it with full belief and conviction. I tried here to convey what it feels like to be in the middle of it, connected to the motor and dance rhythms of the music, caught up in the sequential harmony and the intricate contrapuntal web of sounds, their spatial relations, the kaleidoscopic color changes of voices and instruments, singly and severally, as well as in their collisions. This is perhaps the sort of task that astronauts would have faced in describing the moon if we hadn't actually seen their images on our screens back on Earth, or that confronts those who, having taken hallucinogenic drugs, emerge from a dream world with what I imagine to be weird sensations whirring around inside them, struggling to convey what it felt like to be in a parallel dimension under their influence. Imagine instead what it feels like to stand chest deep in the ocean, waiting to snorkel. What you see are the sparse physical features visible to the naked eye, the shore, the horizon, the surface of the sea, maybe a boat or two, and perhaps the bleached outline of fish or coral just below, but not much else. Then you don your mask and lower yourself into the water. Immediately you enter a separate magical world of myriad tints and vibrant colours, the subtle movement of passing shoals, the waving of sea anemones and coral, a vivid but wholly different reality. To me, this is akin to the experience and shock of performing Bach's music, the way it exposes to you its brilliant colour spectrum, its sharpness of contour, its harmonic depth, and the essential fluidity of its movement and underlying rhythm. Above water there is dull quotidian noise. Below the surface is the magical world of Bach's musical sounds. But even once the performance is over and the music has melted back into the silence from which it began, we are still left with the transporting impact of the experience which lingers in the memory. Strong too is the sense of a mirror being held up to the man who created this music in the first place, one that vividly reflects his complex and rugged personality, his urge to communicate and share his view of the world with his listeners, and his unique capacity for bringing boundless invention, intelligence, wit, and humanity to the process of composition. Emphatically, Bach the man was not a bore.